Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, Benigno S. Aquino III. The President of the Asian Development Bank, President Haruhiko Kuroda, will deliver his welcome remarks.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to welcome you to the 45th annual meeting of the Asian Development Bank. I'm delighted to see such a strong turnout of ADB shareholders, development partners, and representatives of the private sector, civil society, NGOs, and the media. Thank you for joining us today. We are honored by the presence of His Excellency President Benigno Aquino III at our gathering this morning. On behalf of us all, I would like to offer our sincere thanks to the government and the people of the Philippines for continuing to embrace our institution and for their warm and gracious hospitality in hosting this annual meeting. I want to extend our sincere appreciation to our shareholders for their ongoing support of the bank, and particularly this year, the replenishment of the Asian Development Fund. We highly appreciate your generous support to the fund despite the difficult challenges many of you face at home. We especially appreciate those members who increased their contributions, those who have become donors for the first time, and the graduated ADF recipients who accelerated their repayment to augment ADF resources. The substantive replenishment of $12.4 billion, 9.5% higher than the previous replenishment, clearly demonstrate your shared commitment to help the region's most vulnerable people. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, 44 years ago, delegates gathered here in Manila for the first annual meeting of the ADB Board of Governors. While ADB's founders had great aspirations for Asia, few could have predicted that today Asia would be such a powerful engine of global growth. The world is experiencing a fundamental transformation as advanced economies struggle to regain ground following the global financial crisis. developing Asia's growth momentum, while slowing slightly, remains strong. While external demand is still weak, we expect the region will achieve overall growth of 6.9% this year and 7.3% next year. Of course, ongoing difficulties in other parts of the world still present risks. Volatile capital flows still remain a concern. Keeping inflation low and asset prices stable and sustaining growth through prudent macroeconomic and financial management are also key challenges. While developing Asia must remain vigilant against near-term risks, now is the time to push through with greater reforms to support the region's long-term growth. There are large challenges ahead as Asia pursues its own transformation, but it can continue to drive global growth well into the future. When we met in Bali at the onset of the global crisis in 2009, I spoke of the need to fundamentally restructure our approach to development and bring about a more sustainable global balance. This would require Asia, which now accounts for about 30% of global output, to continue to become as much a destination for goods and services as it is a leading source of producing them. This process is already underway. Asia's demand for its own goods and services is growing faster than external demand, and Asia's current account surplus is shrinking. Still, more needs to be done. Increased regional cooperation will help Asian countries take up common challenges and seize opportunities. This includes liberalizing trade within the region to further encourage rebalancing. It includes strengthening physical connectivity through investment in infrastructure and building sophisticated financial systems to better channel Asia's savings into productive investment at home. The potential for progress through regional cooperation is visible across Asia and the Pacific. Cooperation has helped significantly reduce poverty in the greater Mekong sub-region. It has led to increased connectivity and economic growth in Central Asia, more trade liberalization in South Asia, and a comprehensive approach to climate change in the Pacific. These and other shared achievements reflect the Asian wisdom that the richest tapestry is woven from many threads. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, has become a driving force of regional cooperation and integration in Asia. With ADB participation, ASEAN recently took a major step in establishing the ASEAN Infrastructure Fund, which will play an important role in leveraging additional resources for infrastructure financing. I welcome the decision of ASEAN Plus 3 governments to strengthen the Chiang Mai Initiative multilateralization to increase financial stability. I strongly urge developing member countries to continue their cooperative efforts within the region and strengthen South-South cooperation with other developing regions such as Latin America. The world's developing countries have much to learn from each other and much to contribute to the global commons. Cooperation among them will help them to do so much more effectively. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow's successful economies will be well-governed economies with broad access to opportunities and services to promote the well-being of their people and enhance their quality of life. They will thrive while reducing energy use to create a healthier and safer world for their children. They will innovate, take risks, and discover new ways to advance their society. These are the standards to which we all must aspire. In short, tomorrow's successful economies will focus not on growth alone, but on transforming themselves through growth that is inclusive, green, and knowledge-led. Let me focus briefly on each of these elements. First, Asia needs strong growth to continue making headway against poverty. While the region can be proud of its record on poverty reduction, much remains to be done. Several hundred million Asian people still live on less than $1.25 a day, and growing inequalities and polarization exacerbate the problem. Growth in itself is therefore not enough. Only through inclusive growth will this tremendous challenge be met. Most countries in Asia are now pursuing an inclusive growth agenda. They are increasing access to opportunities so that more households, farmers, and small business owners can participate in and benefit from growth. They are working toward growth that employs more people, including women and disadvantaged groups. They are investing more in health, education, and skills development, and expanding access to services and opportunities in lagging regions. As populations age, providing adequate social protection for the elderly will also need to be seriously considered. Removing constraints to inclusive growth agenda is key to ADB's development strategies. To this end, for example, we are working with Cambodia and Lao PDR to implement social safety nets, community-driven development, and smallholder development projects. We are also helping implement a universal health insurance scheme in the state of Mizoram in India. On a larger scale, ADB support for economic corridor development across Central and Southeast Asia will greatly enhance people's mobility and the transport of goods, allowing them in the poorest communities to access services and economic opportunities. Here in the Philippines, the ADB-supported conditional cash transfer program is transforming the lives of poor children and poor families. In its pilot phase, school completion rates rose and health indicators improved substantially, paving the way to a brighter future for the country's youth. Second, a better quality of economic growth must be not only inclusive, but also environmentally sustainable. Green growth recognizes that environmental, social, and economic development complement rather than compete with one another. I believe that with commitment, the right policies and investments, and close regional cooperation, the Asia and Pacific region could lead the world toward a more sustainable and resilient future. I am pleased to note that Asia is rapidly becoming a global leader in green investments, which are themselves becoming an engine of growth in the region. China has become one of the world's top installers of wind turbine and solar photovoltaic systems. India is strongly encouraging the rapid expansion of biogas, solar, and other forms of renewable energy, especially for rural areas, through such innovative policies as its renewable energy certificate. With ADB support, many countries in Asia and the Pacific are adopting plans to reduce the intensity of carbon dioxide emissions and improve resilience to climate change. And more countries are working together to conserve natural resources and critical ecosystems, such as the Coral Triangle in Southeast Asia and the Pacific, on which a coastal population of more than 120 million people depends. Asia must also work to build livable, inclusive, environmentally sustainable cities. Rapid urbanization has brought a multitude of environmental problems which will only worsen as mass migration to cities increases. ADB is working with several member countries to address these problems. Our urban projects in Bangladesh and Georgia, for example, are helping cities to improve transport, water supply, urban services, and ultimately the quality of life of their people. An ongoing study led by ADB Institute entitled Climate Change and Green Asia emphasizes that Asia is well positioned to adopt an agenda which fosters green growth. Together, we can succeed in improving the health and well-being of our planet and providing impetus and inspiration to developing and developed economies alike. Third, while following an inclusive and environmentally sustainable development path, Asia needs to also recognize the critical importance of knowledge-led growth. To be competitive, economies must combine productive resources more efficiently, use new technologies and creative ideas, and promote innovation and entrepreneurship. In short, Asia needs institutional governance and regulatory frameworks that will foster investment in research and development, protect intellectual property rights, offer incentives for innovations, and stimulate competition. Asia also needs to invest more in modern and cost-effective economic infrastructure to support and sustain a knowledge-based economy and society. Businesses today are driven by international markets, global investment, and sophisticated information networks. Investments in infrastructure, tertiary and vocational education, and research and development are essential to allow businesses to move up the value chain and succeed in this highly competitive environment. ADB's support for education, capacity development, information and communications technology, development of private enterprise and the finance sector and other areas has helped developing member countries promote knowledge-led growth. Last year, for example, we drew on ADF funding to support Mongolia's emphasis on higher education for improving the country's long-term competitiveness. There are many other examples, and we are committed to doing more. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is transforming, the region is transforming, and ADB is transforming by increasingly emphasizing these three critical elements of inclusive growth, green growth, and knowledge-led growth. Last year, our operations grew to nearly $21.7 billion, including co-financing, reflecting the growing demands of our developing member countries. Our portfolio performance is improving, and we are working hard to leverage resources through strong partnerships, including partnerships with the private sector. Policy advice, capacity building for public-private partnerships, and financial assistance are helping to build private sector participation in the region's development. Our private sector operations have more than doubled in the last 6 years and have expanded into frontier sectors such as clean energy and energy efficiency. While ADB financing remains vital to many of our DMCs, the needs and priorities of others are changing as they grow. It is not just finance they seek, but finance plus knowledge. We recognize that we must do more to ensure our relevance as an effective development partner in a rapidly changing world, and we will. Our support for traditional development pathways and for inclusive and green growth has served the region well. To further increase the value we bring to our clients, we will significantly scale up our efforts to create, share, and implement knowledge as an integral part of our operations. Among other efforts, we will more closely link our research, policy advice services, and innovation-based operations to the priority needs of our clients. We will also develop new knowledge-based partnerships with recognized centers of excellence and the knowledge results framework to strengthen ADB as a source of and partner for development knowledge. We will also continue to work with you to improve the results of our investment. This year, we will review and refine our corporate results framework, and we will conduct our third Global Perception Survey and our biannual staff engagement survey to gain feedbacks from our clients and from our most important asset, our people. Along with the new accountability mechanism adopted earlier this year and the updated public communications policy, which is now being implemented, these initiatives will help ensure that ADB is transparent, accountable, and results-oriented in all its activities. Ladies and gentlemen, as we tackle the region's large unfinished development agenda, we must also embrace Asia's growing role in a transforming world. I urge each and every one of us to work together as never before to ensure this global transformation is a harmonious one, resulting in higher and more equitably shared well-being among the people the world over. Let us continue to relentlessly pursue our shared vision of an Asia and the Pacific free of poverty. For 45 years, you have placed your great trust in ADB. We accept, of course, that with that trust comes a grave responsibility. And so today, we renew our determination to build an Asia and the Pacific where every child is assured of enough food to eat, the right to good health care and education, a future with opportunity, and the opportunity to grow and achieve regardless of the circumstances of her birth. An Asia and Pacific in which every person can fully participate in and contribute to the welfare of his community, her country, and the world we all share. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kuroda. Today we receive you in our beloved city. We embrace you with our warm hospitality. We gift you with songs and dances, and we bestow upon each of you our belief in a promising future. Ladies and gentlemen, Manila 2012 and beyond, our time is now.
There's a sunrise at the freedom, none is enough. An upbeat, sunny feeling in the air.
There's a wave of optimism to want to try and dare to bring about the change because we care.
We care about tomorrow. Started building now. We're all in this together. It's finally happening now. We are shining. These are endless on. In this place where it really is more fun. We are acting, very far to run. We have found our true place in the sun. Hey, people of the world, we know our time is come, our time is now, our time is now. We are breaking from tradition and doing something new. The time to walk speed and get things done.
We are ready, we are willing. This time it's for real to bring about the change because we care.
We care about tomorrow. We started building now. We're all in this together. It's really finally happening now.
Oh,
We are shining. These are the sun. In this place where it really is more fun.
Really is more fun.
Nag-aabang ng masasakyan patungo kung saan di ko malaman. Sa aking jeepney sinasakyan mayroong natanaw na mama. Sa dinami-rami ng daraan, ikaw pa ang nakita. Ikaw pa ang nakita. May kasama Iban-ibang taong nagtutulakan ang dinaanan ko sa paghabol sa'yo. Tinatanaw ang pagkakay mo sa dalagang pinagsaselosan ko. Sa pagmamadali nadapa ako sa bangketa pinatatayuan nyo. Lumapit ka at tinulungan ako at kita'y pinitigan. Mga matay nagkabanggaan. Sabay itong mga sama. Pasensya ka na, akala ko'y asawa kita. Pasensya ka na, sorry na akala ko pa. Sorry na pagkamalan ka. Mga taong nagtutulakan sa avenidang aking pinatatayuan. Nag-aabang ng masasakyan patungo kung saan di ko malaman. Ibang-ibang taong nagunahan sa uunting sakyan na daraan. Sayang ang jeepney, kanina'y lula at ngayon'y nagsisisi. Sa aking pagbubusisi. At nagkamali. Iba-ibang taong nagtutulakan. Iba-ibang taong nagunahan. Mama, dyan sa tabi.
Have you ever seen bluer skies and sunlight more brilliant than this? Where greens are greener in your eyes and summers never seem to cease. They've been away a bit too long, enough for them to finally know that in this city beats a song that haunts me wherever I go. Manila! Manila! Manila, Manila, I brought all my suitcases home. How can I let you when you're all I claim I own? Manila, Manila, I'm finally where I belong. And I just can't help it if I dance to the music in a song. There are too many promises that where all dreams are set to come true. Four seasons don't make paradise, so I'm gonna make you my home.
I've missed your exploding colors.
Your exploding
that make the
colors.
Rainbow City alive.
Seas of sound,
Kingdom of mirrors
that breathe like the through the night. Manila, Manila, Manila. Woo! exploding.
That means a rainbow city of light.
Seeds of sound
Kingdom of mirrors
that breathe life down through the night. Manila, 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 Manila. Manila. is the moment. This is today when I send all my doubts and demons on their way. Every endeavor I have made ever is coming into play. It's here and now today. This is the moment, my final test. Destiny beckoned, I never reckoned second best. I won't look down, I must not fall. This is the moment of them all. Ngayon ang simula ng hirap mong buhay. Ngayon ang daigdig mo'y bata't makulay. Ngayon gugulin mo ng tama't mahusay. Bawat saglit at sandali, magsikap at magpunyagi, maging aral bawat mali. Ituring mong kahapoy, waring panaginip lang. Ang bukas, pangitain niya'y ganda'y sa isip lang. Kung bawat ngayon mo sa'yo ay laging sulit lang, kay ganda ng buhay. Ngayon, for all these years, I faced the world alone. And now the time has come to prove to them that I've made it on my own, on my own. This is the moment, damn of God. This day or never, I'll sit forever with the gods. When I look back, I will always recall, moment for moment, this was the moment, the greatest moment of them all. life peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest.
Ako'y may isang munting pangarap.
Dream the impossible dream
Aking dakilang lupain.
to find the unbeatable foe,
Sama nating
the
pagsisikap.
unbearable sorrow,
Sama ring
the
mararating.
unreachable sky.
Sama nating mabuting. Pinagsama tayong sa bituin. At ang aking tagumpay, tagumpay ng aking lahi, tagumpay ng aking ibig, at tanging iniisip at inaharap. Hangat ko'y tagumpay natin lahat. Iba't ibang dalaw, isang patutunguhan, ito isang araw hanggang kabuluhan. Iba-iba to all of the stars, no matter what. Tagumpay ng ating lahi, tagumpay ng ating ibig, maniwala sa iyong yakin at pagmamahal. Hangat ko'y tagumpay natin lahat. Hangat ko'y tagumpay natin
Ladies and gentlemen, Mads et al. Ballet Philippines. The Ramon Ubusan Folkloric Group. The Philippine Madrigal Singers led by choir master Mark Anthony Carpio. The Ryan Cayabyab Singers. Jackie Ramos and Tommy Quintucio. Jed Madela. And the Philippine Philharmonic Orchestra under the baton of Maestro Olivier Osanin. Ladies and gentlemen, the performers of Manila 2012 and beyond. May we invite Finance Secretary Cesar V. Purisima, Chair of the Board of Governors, to introduce our guest of honor this morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, His Excellency Benigno S. Aquino III.
Good morning. Please down. Vice President Jojo Binay, Speaker Sonny Belmonte, Mr. Haruhiko Kuroda, President of the ADB, Secretary Cesar Purisima, Governor Amando Tetanco Jr., the Bangko Central, Excellencies and members of the Diplomatic Corps, other members of the Cabinet present, ADB governors, delegates and participants of the 45th annual meeting of the ADB Board of Governors, fellow workers in government, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, really a very pleasant good morning. In 2009, as my countrymen began calling on me to seek the presidency, I found myself facing a dilemma. On one hand, I knew the problems of the nation were very grave indeed. On the other hand, I knew that I could not turn my back on the chance to do my part to solve all these problems. I answered the clamor of my people. We rolled up our sleeves to start work and clean house, thinking that I had a reasonable grasp of the problems I had inherited. But none of us could have imagined how deeply eroded the foundations of government had become in the 9.5 years of my predecessor's administration. Rice imported at inflated cost by the government was rotting away in rented warehouses. Stewards of government-owned and controlled corporations advanced their interests at the expense of the people. Bidding for public works had been orchestrated to favor individuals, again at the expense of the people. Endemic corruption had sapped the system of its vitality. Public funds ceased to be used for the public good and found themselves in private hands, whom we are now holding accountable. The message for 9.5 years was, nice guys finish last. To finish first, you had to lack conscience, exhibit a certain degree of shamelessness, and be an expert at giving handshakes with one hand while picking pockets with the other. The playing field was skewed towards those who had connections or those who could afford to bribe their way into contracts or permits. Politics permeated everything, even poverty alleviation programs. Slots on the conditional cash transfer program were handed out in exchange for votes. Is it any wonder that domestic investments had plunged and foreign investors were reluctant to come in? With too few jobs being generated, our people were trapped in a downward spiral. No education, no work, no chance to improve their lot in life. It would not be far from the truth to say that during the early days of our administration, we all eagerly looked forward to weekends for a short respite from the shock of discovering the extent of the problems that were bequeathed to us. But we refused to compound the apathy of the past with defeatism in the present. Our blueprint was clear: to encourage investment and jumpstart the economy, and for the benefits of growth to be all-inclusive. We wanted to generate jobs. We wanted to ensure our people were healthy enough and had enough skills to fill all of these jobs. We wanted long-term solutions that would not leave any of our people behind. And first and foremost, we wanted a system that our people could buy into, a system where everyone willingly fell in line because no one, no matter how rich or well-connected they might be, was allowed to cut in front of the line. We went about our work. One of our first moves was to institutionalize a zero-based budget approach where expenditures are rationalized and are not mindlessly carried over to the next year, regardless of whether they worked or not. We went after tax evaders aggressively and still do. With the help of our allies in Congress, we passed a law that put standards of governance in place so that government-owned and controlled corporations became more efficient and rational. And we showed our resolve that no public official, regardless of his or her position, will be beyond the reach of justice and accountability. All of these efforts have allowed us to reclaim our national honor. They have boosted confidence in the country, restored our citizenry's morale, and are reaping dividends on the economic front. Investors and Filipinos alike see what is happening. Here is a country determined to turn the corner by instituting genuine, wide-ranging, meaningful reform and acting on its belief that good governance is the bedrock of equitable progress. We have had 6 positive ratings from the credit ratings agencies, actions since we have took over government a little less than 2 years ago. A stark contrast to the single upgrade and 6 downgrades in the 9 years of the previous administration. We have experienced all-time highs in our stock market. In fact, 27 times in our 22 months in office. 2 years ago, who would have thought that our peso-denominated bonds would have a demand, let alone be oversubscribed? Who would have thought that onerous incentives would not have to be offered to make proponents actively compete for our infrastructure projects? Who would have thought that at this point we will be less than a year away from being a net exporter of rice, obviously weather permitting? As can be seen from our experience, weeding out corruption allows for a more fertile economic landscape, one that not only brings investors in, but also allows the real work of governance to impact the greatest number of our people. Enforcing strict adherence to public bidding rules has allowed our Department of Public Works and Highways to save 6.14 billion pesos from our 2011 budget. Now that the leaks have been plugged, we can go about our business knowing that our taxpayers' hard-earned money indeed goes to projects that will benefit them. As of April 15 of this year, the DPWH has bidded out 92% of the 2,139 projects for the year. Of these, 95% have actually been given notices to proceed. In fact, 403 have already been completed, with the rest either ongoing or about to begin construction. Another example, now that the targeting system for our social welfare programs has been insulated from political considerations, we are confident that the more than 3 million households in our conditional cash transfer program are actually the neediest families and not merely the best connected. Now we know that we are actually sponsoring 5.2 million of our poorest families through our PhilHealth program, our national health insurance program. We have been blessed with an abundance of resources and with the strategic location as a gateway between Asia and the Pacific. But our greatest resource has always been our people, who have constantly shined given the right environment. In any industry, in almost any corner of the earth, you will see a Filipino working hard and earning praises from his or her employers. Our people have always been our greatest competitive advantage, and our efforts are focused on investing in them. We are making sure that opportunity, wealth, and power are distributed equitably among our citizenry. This is the key to ensuring that growth is sustained. Equal opportunities breed social and political stability, which acts as a safeguard against disruptions on the road to progress. We have seen in recent years how the opposite is a real danger that governments must address. We have seen formerly stable economies rocked by unrest because a small elite reaped the benefits of growth, while the rest of the population was left with little means to pay their mortgages or finance their children's educations. For growth to be meaningful, it has to be inclusive. It is with this principle in mind that we have allocated unprecedented sums to alleviate extreme poverty and are concentrating on providing more opportunities for employment. We have identified 3 sectors that will have the most impact on inclusive growth. Agriculture has experienced a 51.3% increase in its budget this year. For example, we are also going all out in our It's More Fun in the Philippines tourism campaign, along with a more liberalized air policy to increase access to the country's secondary gateways. And aside from the aforementioned strides in infrastructure development, we are also set to roll out 10 public-private partnership projects this year, which will include schools and extensions to our train systems. Good governance does encourage inclusive growth. Being steadfast in our principles, leading by example, and sending a clear signal that corruption will not be tolerated gives us a certain measure of confidence that the 568.6 billion pesos we allocated to social services, which is about 31% of our entire budget, will go where it's supposed to go. Transparency, accountability, and prudent spending also create fiscal space for social and infrastructure investments. This discipline has allowed us to channel resources to investments in our people. The budget we inherited in 2010 allocated, for example, 175 billion pesos to basic education. It now has a budget of 238.8 billion pesos, a 36.5% jump after 2 consecutive years of budget increases. Our budget for health also increased by 48.5% over 2 years, up to 43.5 billion pesos from 29.3 billion in 2010. The government's conditional cash transfer program experienced an almost fourfold increase over the past 2 years, from 10 billion pesos in 2010, catering to about 800,000 families, to 39.4 billion pesos for over 3 million families. All of these we were able to do without raising taxes. These are amounts that have been generously augmented by those who share a vision of an equitably progressive Philippines. The Asian Development Bank's overseas official development assistance to the Philippines amounts to $761.97 million. This includes $643.85 million to projects concerning social protection and support, agrarian reform, rural infrastructure enhancement, credit for better health care, and irrigation in the southern Philippines. You have helped out in our public-private partnership program, in our efforts to reform the justice system, and our energy-efficient electric tricycle project. We are getting to where we want to be faster because of your assistance. This meeting of your Board of Governors, in fact, reaffirms the newfound confidence that the international community has exhibited towards our nation. For this, you have the gratitude of our people and a commitment from my administration. Gone are the days when the funds you funnel to our country will end up like water leaking through a broken pail. You will continue to see results. You will continue to see a Philippines that is finally living up to its potential. We are prepared to follow through on our commitments. And you are, by all means, welcome to see if we're living up to our word. Change has set in the Philippines, and we are open for business. It began with the people granting us the trust and opportunity to re-establish a government that truly puts them front and center. It continues with the people empowered and finally aware of their vast potential, a people buying into a system where actions have consequences and hard work reaps its rewards, a people willing to cast aside the negativity, eager to harness optimism into more opportunities. It can only end with the people reaping the benefits of a system where growth is both inclusive and sustained, where progress is felt by all, and where every citizen lives the life of dignity that he truly deserves. Again, on behalf of our people, we welcome all of you, we thank you, and may have a very good day.
This concludes the opening session of the 45th ADB Annual Meeting of the Board of Governors. Thank you for joining us in this occasion. We would like to thank His Excellency President Benigno S. Aquino III for gracing this event. May we request everyone to remain in their areas as the President of the Republic of the Philippines and party exit the plenary hall. We request everyone to be seated as the governors, heads of delegation, and VIP spouses leave. We request everyone to be seated as the governors, heads of delegation, and VIP spouses leave. May we also request the cabinet secretaries and government officials invited to Malacanang to exit with the governors. May we also request the cabinet secretaries and government officials invited to Malacanang to exit with the governors. Other guests invited to Malacanang, please wait for the governors and heads of delegation to exit the hall. May we request the guests invited to the luncheon hosted by the President at Malacanang to exit the plenary hall and board the coasters. Please follow the ushers to the buses. May we request everyone to remain in their seats as the luncheon guests leave the hall. May we request everyone to remain in their seats as the luncheon guests leave the hall.